We built a budget that reduced taxes for small businesses. We built a budget that lived within its means. We built a budget that said $500 million was going to go back to the taxpayers. Why? Because unlike Washington, we believed it was your money, so we sent it back to you. That's what we put in that 2021 budget. Well, you know what's going on in Concord? It was this close to falling apart this year. You know, we fought for parental rights. We didn't get it this year because the Democrats took over the floor of the House. It went away. Under my leadership, we passed education funding. We passed that. We made sure that we set a standard for abortion, that we would not have late-term abortions in New Hampshire. We cut the business taxes to have growth in this state, to have the success that we have right now. We eliminated the interest and dividends tax in New Hampshire. We've done that all under my leadership. We passed constitutional carry under my leadership. I've got it done. I've got it done in New Hampshire. And we don't want Washington coming to New Hampshire. We don't want those Biden lackeys coming into this state and telling us what to do. As governor, I certainly won't let that happen. I will make sure that we fight as a state for what you believe in. I believe we need to continue to get parental rights for education. I believe that we need to make it so every child can take advantage of education freedom accounts in the state of New Hampshire. And I believe we need to keep lowering taxes to drive this economy. Because what I fought for in this state is to keep New Hampshire, New Hampshire. And that's what I'll do for you. I'd like you to come on this ride with me for governor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. At this time, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce the 48th Vice President of the United States. He presided over some of the best, or he was part of the administration that had the best economy. We had secure borders. We kept the bad guys away from, in the other parts of the country, the bad actors stayed away. We had no new wars. So, Vice President Mike Pence.
Thank you, Steve. Well, hello, Salem. Happy Labor Day, everybody. I'm Mike Pence. I'm from Indiana, and I'm running for President of the United States of America. Thank you all for coming out. We couldn't be more grateful to you. You know, I'm running for president for one reason and one reason only. That is that I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. You know, since I left the White House and moved home to Indiana, people have come up to me and asked me occasionally if I ever thought it'd be this bad. And frankly, I've known Joe Biden a long time. Let me tell you something, he's always been that wrong. But this is different. Men and women in New Hampshire, the Democratic Party has been overrun by the radical left. Whether it was that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan that emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world, or whether it be the avalanche of spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, mortgage rates at a 22-year high, 2 out of 3 Americans living paycheck to paycheck, or their open border policies that created the worst border crisis in American history, their war on energy that's caused gasoline prices to still be up 60%, or whether it's the steady assault on our liberties and our most cherished values. Let me just say, I'm running for President of the United States because I believe every one of us that has the ability to bring about change in America has a responsibility to step forward and make sure that Joe Biden is never reelected as President of the United States of America. Now look, elections are about choices. I believe we need new leadership in the White House, but I also believe we need new leadership in the Republican Party. This is a very serious time in the life of our nation. I stand before you today and say with deep humility that I'm running because I truly believe I am the most qualified, the most proven, and the most tested conservative in this race. And it's going to be conservative principles that bring us back. Men and women of the live free or die state, let me leave you with this challenge. If there ever was a time that we needed the people in the first in the nation state to step up and shape leadership in this party that is grounded in our party's long-standing commitment to a strong national defense, to American leadership in the world, to limited government fiscal responsibility, to traditional values and the right to life, it's now. Now, I've been deeply inspired. I've been deeply inspired as I've traveled around New Hampshire, as I spent time in that first-in-the-nation caucus state out in the heartland, with the care with which every one of you takes your responsibility to shape our national leadership. Time and again, New Hampshire has been there to make sure that we had just the right leadership, and I know you'll do it again, because I have faith. You know, in all my years as your vice president, my years as governor, and my years as a congressional leader for 12 years, I must tell you that my opinion of the federal government went down every year. But my opinion of the American people went up. I mean, I have to tell you, and I know it's happening in Florida right now, having visited sites of hurricanes and wildfires and tornadoes and floods, and sometimes visited places that were set upon by evil human actions. You know, if you arrive at a place like Florida right now, the day after the wind starts to blow, in this country, the only thing you can't find in that neighborhood is a parking spot. Because in this country, when people see bad things happening in the next community, in the next state, they pile water and food and tools in the back of the pickup truck, in the back of the minivan, and they drive and find somebody they've never met before and will never see again and help them rebuild their lives. I mean, I will tell you, I have faith that better days are coming. If we ground our party's leadership and our nation's leadership in our most timeless values, because I know the American people. I say with deep conviction from everything I've seen, the American people are the most faith-filled, freedom-loving, hard-working, generous people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people again, and I intend to go get it for us. And finally, let me say I have that other kind of faith. You know, we're celebrating on Labor Day hard-working Americans who've created the most prosperous economy the world has ever known. And it's been done with the sweat of our brows through the generations. Generations like my grandfather that got off a boat onto Ellis Island in 1923 and went to Chicago, Illinois and drove a bus for 40 years. Hard work like my mom and dad who built a small business in a small town running gas stations. And the American people have delivered. But I truly do believe that the reason we've created the most prosperous nation on earth is because we haven't done it alone. I truly do believe, now more than ever, we ought to remember that this nation was founded on a notion that we believe that we don't get our rights from governments, from sovereigns, even from charters. We believe as Americans, from our very founding, that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And I truly do believe in these challenging times, time of frustration and disappointment and national angst, now more than ever, if we will but just renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided the destiny of this great experiment in freedom. Men and women of New Hampshire, on this Labor Day, I say with confidence, the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come. I'm Mike Pence. I'm running for President of the United States, and I'd be honored to have your support and your prayers. God bless you all.
Thank you, Vice President Mike Pence. Although we have 4 more presidential candidates here, we have a couple that were not able to attend, and I'm going to invite a couple of people to bring greetings from the campaign. Starting with President Trump's campaign, we have Representative Lily Walsh, who's come to join us and bring greetings from President Trump's campaign. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much, Steve, and the Salem GOP. And I'm sure President Trump sends his condolences that he couldn't be here today, but he'll be back in New Hampshire soon, trust me. You know, I passed 3 gas stations on the way here, and I can't help but see that gas prices are still on the rise, which made me think about when President Trump was in office and gas was at least $2 less per gallon than it is now. And there's quite a few things I miss from those times, like border security, the lowest unemployment rate since history, and respect from around the world, which we do not have now. Biden is on a roller coaster ride to hell, and he's taking America with him. And we have to stop that. You know, Biden and the Democrats have increased the consumer price 16% over a 2-year period. So that equates to a 16% sales tax for Granite Staters, which, you know, the sales tax word is very bad for anyone in New Hampshire that wants to keep the live free or die state. And so he's also drained half of the strategic petroleum reserves, and that was a feeble attempt to try to placate his 9% inflation rate that he caused. So right now, that's horrible going into the winter months for Americans. And Americans have less savings now than they had during COVID. What does that say? 61% of Americans say that they're living paycheck to paycheck. And that's up from 59% just last summer. So friends, there's a reason why President Trump is so far ahead in the polls nationwide. We want him back, don't we? We need him back, and Americans are realizing how great things were. They had a better lifestyle, and quite frankly, they felt safer while he was president, and they want to get that back again. So remember, in January and November of 2024, to vote for Donald J. Trump for president, and let's take America back and make America great again. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Next we have Senator Regina Birdsell is going to bring greetings from the Ron DeSantis and Never Back Down PAC campaign. Regina.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Regina Birdsell. I'm the State Senator of District 19, which encompasses the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Wyndham. And I'm here to speak on behalf of Ron DeSantis today. Ron DeSantis grew up in a blue-collar family. He went to Yale. He worked his way through Yale and on the baseball team. He also went to Harvard Law School. Once he graduated from Harvard Law School after 9/11, he decided to join the United States Navy as a JAG officer. He was stationed at Gitmo, and he was embedded with the Navy SEALs in Fallujah, in Iraq. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. When he returned from the military, he decided to run for Congress. He won in his district. Then he went, and he was one of the ones that originated the House Freedom Caucus. In 2018, he decided to run for governor. He barely won against Andrew Gillum. But in 2022, he ran for re-election and won by 20 points, even in the deep blue Miami-Dade. So, as as a recruiter in the high-tech industry, we always look at past performances to get an indication of what future performance is going to be. And in my opinion, Ron DeSantis has done a stellar work as his performance in Florida, both bringing back classical education to the Florida students, preventing a lockdown in Florida, which brought Florida back faster than any state in the nation. He led through Hurricane Ian, and he led through most recently through Idalia. And when you have a Democrat who says that they are going to vote for Governor DeSantis because of his hurricane management, you know you have a leader there. When I look at a candidate, I look for their core values: God, family, and your plan. Ron DeSantis is a Catholic, and I trust that he will go after the FBI when people like me who practice our religion are called terrorists. His devotion to Casey during her breast cancer tells me all I need to know about his family values. Your plan. Ideas are great, but you have to have a plan. And he has plans. For instance, his plan for draining the swamp would be when you have bureaucrats who are responsible for policy, then they will be redesignated. And if they don't follow the DeSantis administration, they can and will be fired. This country needs someone like Ron DeSantis as president. He would be the only president since President Bush 41 that has served in combat. So he understands and he knows the cost of war. We need a president like DeSantis who will never back down. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Senator Berzo, for delivering those remarks. Right now, it's my honor to bring up to the stage, directly from San Antonio, Texas, Representative William Hurd. Will Hurd. He's a former CIA clandestine officer, served in the U.S. Congress, and a candidate for U.S. president.
This is how we do it in Texas. Howdy! Thank you for this cool weather. This is a winter day in Texas, so it's great being up here with y'all here in New Hampshire. And what I want to do in my 5 minutes is introduce myself to many of y'all who may not know who I am. He was right. I spent a decade, almost a decade, overseas as a CIA officer. My job was to stop terrorists from blowing up the homeland, to prevent Chinese and Russian spies from stealing our secrets, and to prevent nuclear weapons proliferators from bringing dirty bombs into our country. I then ran for Congress, because in addition to doing all that stuff when I was in the CIA, I had to brief members of Congress, and I was pretty shocked by the caliber of our elected officials. My mother, may she rest in peace, always said be the part of the problem or part of the solution, and so I ran for Congress. I served for 6 years. I walked away. You don't have to die or be defeated to leave Congress. I represented one of the largest congressional districts in the country. 29 counties, 2 time zones, 820 miles of the border. It took 10 hours to drive across my district at 80 miles an hour, which was the speed limit in most of the district, but my wife found out it's not speed limit in all the districts. And here's what I learned in that moment. I was the most targeted person in Congress. Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff spent tens of millions of dollars to prevent the black Republican from winning in a 72% Latino district. Nobody thought I had a chance. When I won the first time, nobody thought I had a chance to get reelected, but I did because I showed up to places that didn't expect me to be there. It's easy talking to y'all, if I'm being frank. We agree on 75-80% of stuff. But we got to take a conservative message to places that hasn't heard it in order for us to win in November. That's what I learned and experienced when I was in Congress. The last couple of years, I've been working in industry. I've been advising some of the highest end, most technological advanced companies in AI, quantum computing. And guess what? I've seen our enemies up close and personal. I've seen them at all points in my career. When I was in the CIA, Al-Qaeda shot at me. They chased me. They tried to blow me up. In Congress, the Democrats gave everything they could to try to get rid of me. And the last couple of years, I've seen how the Chinese government, the Russian government, is trying to steal our secrets, trying to steal our intellectual property. We are faced with a number of generational defining challenges. The Chinese government is trying to surpass us as a global superpower. We got to be able to achieve unprecedented peace at a time that we're in a new Cold War with an adversary that's larger than us. We have to figure out how to have a thriving economy at a time when new technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, synthetic biology is going to impact every single industry, not in 10 years, in 2 or 3 years. We can clap for that. 65% of Americans think a robot's going to take their job. That might happen. But we need people in office that actually understand these technologies, that use these technologies. An 80-year-old man who doesn't use email is not the person that's going to help us take advantage of technology before it takes advantage of us. Today, another 10,000 people came into our country illegally. Today, another $1 billion has been added to our national debt. Today, another community has become unsafe. Families are struggling, and the Chinese government is only getting stronger. To address these challenges, we have to retire Joe Biden once and for all. And we have to win elections in November. I've learned something representing one of the most difficult districts in the country. Way more unites us than divides us, and we're better together. We can do this. If we want to make sure this experiment called America continues for another 247 years, it doesn't require from us the kind of sacrifices our forebears have done. We are not fighting on the plains of Lexington, or marching in the streets of Selma, or involved in hand-to-hand combat in the mountains of Mazar-e-Sharif. All we have to do is vote and get our friends to vote. And I know you know how to do that, New Hampshire. God bless you. May God continue to bless this grand state. I hope to earn your support at some point. Go to hurdforamerica.com to learn a little bit more. And I'd love to meet you later.
Thank you very much. Representative Hurd. Okay, at this point, I get to introduce the 46th Governor of Arkansas, former U.S. Attorney and former Member of Congress, Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Thank you. It is great to be here in New Hampshire. Let me just start out by saying something about America on this Labor Day. The United States of America has the #1 economy in the world. Isn't that terrific? We want to keep it that way. The United States of America has the #1 military in the world. Let's keep it that way. We have the most freedom of any country in the world. We need to fight for that freedom. And then, what country can you name that people are trying to get in every day? That is the America that I know. That's what this election is about. Now, I'm flooded with memories whenever I come here to New Hampshire. They're not personal memories necessarily of me being here, but I remember back when I was chairman of the Republican Party in Arkansas that Bill Clinton was campaigning here in New Hampshire. And so I watched it from afar, and he called himself the comeback kid then, and recognized that a lot of things can happen in New Hampshire. And so I've watched it from afar. It is an honor to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to bringing my bride of 50 years here to New Hampshire as well. Now, just the path to get here, I mentioned when I was chairman of the party in Arkansas, in 2010, put it in perspective, the Democrats in Arkansas had 5 out of 6 of the federal offices, Congress and senators, 5 out of 6. They had 100% of our state constitutional officers. They had a majority in both the House and the state Senate. They had an overwhelming majority of all local offices. That was in 2010. In 5 years later, when I was sworn in as governor, we had 100% of our state constitutional officers. We had 6 out of 6 of our federal officials elected as Republican, and we had almost supermajority in the House and Senate and the legislature. That is a reversal in 5 years of the dynamics in Arkansas. And it happened because we articulated the principles of free enterprise. We said we want the private sector of the economy to grow faster than the government sector. We said we wanted to have a limited government and shrink it. And so when I got elected governor, we just did that. We had the supermajority, and so we lowered taxes from 7% down to 4.9%. That's $700 million going from the government back to the taxpayers. We became the #1 pro-life state in the nation. Whenever you look at my successor that we turned over, I was term limited, and I turned it over to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I left her with a $2 billion surplus, the first time that had ever happened in history. We created 100,000 jobs. And today is Labor Day, and we celebrate the workers of America. And I believe in the dignity of work. I grew up on a farm, I cleaned chicken houses, I've worked in factories, and I understand the challenge of affordable housing. Because I lived in a mobile home. And this is the American story, going from a mobile home on a rabbit farm to the governor's residence. But that happened because this is America. But whenever you look at the regard for jobs, we had a pandemic. And as you know, we had to make tough decisions as governors during that time. And whenever I looked at all the pressure nationally coming to me saying you need to shelter in place, and I thought about it, and they wanted me to declare some businesses an essential business, and you can stay open. Somebody else is a non-essential business, and you've got to close down. And I said to Washington, that makes no sense to me. We're not going to do that, because every business that provides a job for a family is an essential business. We honor those workers. I stood my ground. I stood for freedom. And when it came to our schools, I looked after March of 2020, I said, this is not going to work in a rural state where we have limited internet to be able to go virtual and expect our kids to get educated. I said, we're going to have in-classroom instruction this next school year. All the pressure came nationally again. I said, no, we're going to do it. We're going to have in-classroom instruction. And the result is that Arkansas ranked #2 in the nation in terms of days of in-classroom instruction during the pandemic. Everybody asked me, all right, who is the #1 state? Well, it wasn't Florida, by the way. It was, we could be competitive in this world, it was Wyoming, but Arkansas was #2. And so we value work. I'm running for President of the United States today because I want to keep the United States #1 in our military. I want us to show respect for our veterans that have served our country. I want to make sure that we have the #1 economy in the world, and to do that, let's take that principle I applied as governor and said we want to grow the private sector of the economy more than the government sector. And that's the reason I have said that we're going to reduce non-defense federal employment by 10%. That's going to reduce the administrative state. It's going to give us more control. It's going to save us dollars. And so those are things that we need to do. Whenever you look at we need a balanced budget, I did that for 8 years as governor. The last time the budget was balanced in the United States was when I was in Congress. It was way too long ago. We need to secure our border. I had to do that during the Bush administration. I was head of the DEA. I was Undersecretary for Border Security. We didn't get it perfect then, but it looks perfect compared to what it is today. And so I know what needs to be done. Whenever you look at the cartels that have to be targeted in Mexico, I did that whenever I was head of the DEA, and I went and visited with President Vicente Fox and said, we can do this together. And one of the keys is we've got to use economic pressure on Mexico to cooperate with us in stopping the fentanyl crisis in America. We need to put pressure on them to help us to control the border. That is one of the early responsibilities that I have. And so, balance the budget. Let's secure the border. Let's enforce the law. I'm a former federal prosecutor, and I understand those simple words, enforce the law. And if you look at the smash and grab in our inner cities today, it is intolerable in a nation that regards the rule of law. As president, I will simply say we're not going to give dollars to a city or a state that does not enforce the law. Let's make sure we come back to that in America. I do believe we need to have a strong America and the strongest military, because that's how we keep the world at peace. We can take on China, we can beat their, in terms of their economy, we can stand against their human rights abuses, and we can stand for the freedom of Taiwan. And so you can see a little bit of the fire that I would bring as President of the United States. Now, this is a competitive world. As governor, I competed with some of my colleagues. And I love Chris Sununu that's here. But we compete. And so we're in this primary for President of the United States, and guess what? We're competing. And I see some great supporters of other candidates. Hats off, and I respect you. But I'm making the case that I can lead this country, and I need your help to do that. And so if you look at the future of our country, I recited that we're number one, but we still have challenges today. And if we're going to remain number one, we need new leadership in America and not 4 more years of Joe Biden. We also need a different change of direction in our party. And I'll tell you honestly, we don't need 4 more years of Donald Trump. It is important that we go a different direction with new leadership in our country, new choices. Let's give America what they want. Let's don't give them a Biden-Trump option again. Let's give new options for our future, for the next generation of young people who love freedom in our country. It's asa2024.com. I was on the last debate. I intend to be in the Reagan Library. Help us out. God bless you. God bless America.
Thank you, Governor Hutchinson. Okay, our next speaker and candidate for President of the United States. I love saying that. We don't usually get to do that here in Salem, New Hampshire. President of the United States. It's hard to imagine. Before I introduce him, I want to know, did you guys get enough food today? Did you enjoy it? How about a nice round of applause for all the cooks over there that worked hard to get beef and serving hot stuff back in that kitchen. Thank you very much. Okay, right now our next candidate for president is former mayor of Cranston, Rhode Island. He was the president and chief operating officer of Morgan and Keegan and Company. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mayor